Let's rank every Radio Silence movie, including Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. Now let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I want to be a fighter, like you.
Oh, let it burn! Let it burn!
Did you miss me?
You have to shoot them in the head. They always come back.
The boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Good luck.
Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. With the release of Ready or Not 2, Here I Come this past weekend, it is time to rank every Radio Silence movie, specifically the ones that they directed. However, I know they've produced a couple other things here and there, like some of the VHS sequels, an Apple TV movie, and even other anthology horror flicks. But for today's video, let's hone in on just the 8 movies that they've directed, everything from Scream to VHS to Ready or Not to Abigail. As always with these videos, we are going to have different rankings of these 8 movies. There's a lot of different which ways that you can kind of switch them around and put them in place. For that reason, please don't cry down in the comments below. Would it really be fun if we all had the same rankings of movies? No. So instead, leave me your ranking of these 8 films down below. Thank you to all of my channel members and patrons who allow me to do this crazy shit. Now let's get into the rankings. Technically the first feature film that Radio Silence made, at least one that they directed in full. Devil's Due is basically a found footage take on Rosemary's Baby. So even though the concept is a bit of a retread, I think that the scares and characters absolutely deliver here. As a sucker for found footage, I can't help but really love this one. It's got a Paranormal Activity setup about it that captures some questionable angles, but the footage that's found is a terrifying tragedy when all is said and done. The scene of something evil writhing around in Sam's belly is super nasty, and some of the scares later on feel haunted house inspired. There's also a great deal of implied world building here that I love with that cult that's bringing about these demonic babies in the first place. That denouement especially is intriguing, showing yet another couple about to get some more demon babies inside of them. They're being driven around by the same cab driver, but in an all different part of the world. This is crazy. What is going on with this group? That's super duper nasty. I've always really liked this movie, and personally I find it to be a tad underrated from that like early 2010s era of found footage movies that we got, you know, after Paranormal Activity came out. This is definitely a lesser seen Radio Silence movie. I feel like they're much more known for their popcorn movies that we're going to talk about later on in this video, but this one might surprise you because it is a more straightforward horror film where a lot of their other stuff is like horror comedy or some sort of blend thereof. If you want to see them do something a little darker, check out Devil's Due. The wonderfully unexpected sequel to Ready or Not features the best cast that Radio Silence has ever assembled for one of their movies. Sadly, it also has the messiest plot. It's tough to hate on this movie, however, as the entire cast carries this sequel on their backs with some really impressive performances. It was so cool to see the master of body horror, David Cronenberg himself, show up here for a quick little cameo as the head of the Danforth house. Cronenberg rarely acts, but whenever he does, it always seems to cut through like it does here. You can see that his toxic relationship with his son Titus is one of the many reasons that Sean Hattasey's character is so fucked up in this film. It's also great seeing Sarah Michelle Gellar in new horror flicks, but I'm surprised to say that Hattasey really steals the show by the end of this as our big bad. Buffy, Helen, Cece, now Ursula, it's just another iconic horror character to add to the very long list that Sarah Michelle Gellar has portrayed in the past. Even though these siblings had multiple chances to kill both of our focal sisters, like kinda to the point where it's frustrating a little bit, the character work here is so impressive, you kind of have to look past all of that movie logic. There's a scene where this very fast movie slows down for a second and Titus accidentally punches his sister in the face. Titus doesn't even bat an eye or try to apologize. This doesn't come off as a shock to Ursula either. It's almost like confirming what she's already known about her brother for some time. So much is said in this little moment without any words actually being expressed either way. Impeccable character work, baby. I love it. Another major standout here is Elijah Wood, proving his versatility once again with some deadpan humor. Wood has played everything from unlikely heroes to sadistic maniacs, but here he gets this very neutral role in a chaotic situation that plays for a lot of dry laughs. There's something so absolutely hilarious about a character acting so nonchalant in such an outrageous and ridiculous situation like this. When he realizes that one of the characters in the room that he's standing in is about to explode into blood, he just calmly hides behind a little pillar as the guy explodes and blood goes everywhere. I also love how anal he is about LaBelle's rules and how excited he gets over it. Like, this is like his calling in a lot of ways. This performance cuts through so much, it almost makes the movie for me. It's a very different kind of humor than what Radio Silence has featured in a lot of their other films in the past. The stars of this show, however, is an on-screen relationship that horror fans have been wanting to see for ages now. Samara Weaving and Catherine Newton together at last. All is right in the world. These two scream queens have dominated the last decade of horror with some of the best popcorn horror flicks out there, like Freaky, The Babysitter, Lisa Frankenstein, Mayhem, Abigail, and the original Ready or Not. Having them in the same movie together as sisters almost feels a little meta considering their deserved final girl status that they both earned on their own. This movie does, however, feature some of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to filmmaking these days, like Netflix over-explaining dialogue that goes over plot points over and over and over again in case you decided to check your phone for the last 5 minutes. On top of that, I think this is easily the messiest story we've ever gotten in a Radio Silence flick, but how can you hate on this film when there is so much good shit going on with the performances? This movie is so stacked that I can confidently say here in March of this year, like end of Q1, we ain't even into Q2 of 2026 yet, I can easily and confidently say this is the most stacked cast of a horror movie all year long, maybe the last couple of years too. You also have to consider that we never needed Ready or Not to become a franchise. The fact that we got a sequel that was really damn solid and features the best cast of a horror movie all year, maybe the last couple of years, I mean, that's saying something, man. They handled this with grace. I always had faith in this sequel. I'm personally very glad we got this movie from the cast alone, warts and all. This is a very high C tier for me, just barely not getting into B. The Scream revival would not have been possible without this 2022 flick that has been pretty divisive amongst longtime franchise fans. Five Cream is best known for introducing the core four, killing off a fan favorite character, and finally featuring sequel killers that aren't family members of someone from the past. Sam and Tara might not find their footing as characters until about halfway through this one, but I couldn't help but be won over by Sam stabbing the ever-loving shit out of Richie Kirsch. Sam earned her final girl status, unlike a certain new character in a certain new Scream movie. Did I say that out loud? Oh man. Admittedly, the core four wouldn't all gel together until the next film, but you can see some humble beginnings here in this fifth entry. Dewey's death is absolutely controversial, but I think it may be the best part of this entire film. You couldn't write a more poetic death for this character whose heart has always been bigger than his brain. Dewey Riley risking everything to protect strangers he literally just met is such a fitting end to this dude's arc, who has always thrown cares to the wind in order to save those around him. He has also skated past death, just barely giving the thumbs up, being wheeled out of a horrible situation multiple times in the past couple of movies, so in a way him dying here is sort of meta, which again, very in line with the Scream franchise. Finally, Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt easily gave us some of the best sequel killers of the series, with Richie and Amber, an unlikely duo motivated by toxic fandom, wanting to give the Stab movies some better ideas. Their cowardice is greater than some of the other pathetic ghost faces we've seen in the past, which lends itself to some really iconic moments here, especially Amber talking about being radicalized and also getting so excited, drooling over the fact that she killed Dewey, she was the one to do it. There's a lot of qualities that make a villain great, but one of them is making your audience absolutely hate them. And my god, do I fucking hate Richie and Amber. They suck so hard, and I mean that in the best way possible. They took Dewey from us and rubbed it in our damn faces, but not before getting eviscerated and or lit on fire. With Scream 5's motive being more relevant than ever, especially looking at the current state of the Scream fanbase, my god, I think this movie is aging like fine wine in a very similar way to Scream 3 and Scream 4, which elements of those films I think are becoming more and more relevant as time goes on. The same thing very clearly is happening for this film. I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Radio Silence got screamed out after part 6, so they decided to make this weird little vampire movie called Abigail. Sadly, this one flopped, and you might have missed it in theaters. If that's the case, please go check this one out. We are about to talk spoilers, and frankly, this is one that deserves your attention. I think it might even be better if you don't know too much about it, because the first trailer spoiled one of the biggest twists in the entire film, sadly. Another con very similar to their latest entry here is I think the ending goes on a little too long, too many things packed in there that maybe should have been cut. But just like Ready or or Not 2, you can't help but kind of love this one because of how great the cast is. What is my favorite horror performance from Melissa Barrera so far? Joey gets to be super badass here and even gets some moments of subtlety with little evil Abigail. Here we see a troubled character doing an awful thing to get out of an awful situation. I think everything going on with this character and her son is super effective. It really makes you root for her. Maybe it comes a little too late in the game, but I'm glad it's there in the first place. This is another great ensemble that Radio Silence was able to put together, featuring Kevin Durand, Catherine Newton, Angus Cloud, and Dan Stevens, all delivering some excellent performances, maybe even some of the best from their careers. We don't talk about this enough on this page, but casting is one of the most important parts of directing. If you don't throw the right person at a role, it might not land. Radio Silence, especially in their last two features, have totally understood the assignment there. If you liked the blend of horror and comedy in Ready or Not, you have to check out Abigail. I'm begging you. The Requel Sequel is not only one of my favorite Scream movies, but I think it is easily the most fresh-feeling new Scream movie out of the bunch. Outside of that lackluster reveal at the end, of course. The opening scene is the best Ghostface reveal we've gotten in the last 3 movies. The core 4 have more in store than ever, and the suspense will keep you on the edge of your seat in this fast-paced New York set slasher. Most of the Scream films use small-town USA to their advantage, but this film takes the meta slasher to new heights. It might not be the gimmicky New York City slasher that some fans wanted, but it uses the general big city setting to its advantage consistently throughout. Again, Ghostface might not be throwing people off of the Statue of Liberty or kicking boomboxes in the middle of Times Square, but we get something that's a little more grounded and makes a little more sense considering the fact that these characters are living in New York, not visiting it like tourists. The subway sequence, for instance, shows the claustrophobic and surprisingly isolated horror of being attacked on a subway filled with intoxicated strangers. Multiple situations show characters being trapped on higher floors of big buildings as opposed to a suburban house or garage. Scream 6 simultaneously brings to life and celebrates fan theories by successfully trying out new ideas and implementing them into the tried and true murder mystery formula. You know, something that another sequel in this franchise would totally fumble. It is a little frustrating to me that it took until this movie to gel the core 4 together and actually establish some good new characters, but thankfully they finally accomplished that here in part 6. Chad being the glue that holds these 4 together is wonderfully wholesome, and the subtle meta commentary on the fans' reactions to Sam Carpenter here is a tasteful jab that never feels malicious. The franchise commentary might only exist to implement some weak nostalgic callbacks, and the killers are pretty damn obvious, but this movie makes up for that in its suspenseful sequences, brutal kills, and interesting character work. I will never understand the hate that this movie gets. This is one of the most fun Scream movies out there. Did you know that after VHS, Radio Silence made another anthology horror flick called Southbound? It is super overlooked, not too many people have seen it, but man, it's really good, and in terms of concept, it might even be better than VHS. Interestingly enough, a lot of the same people worked on this one. You have segments here not only from Radio Silence, but also from David Bruckner and Roxanne Benjamin, who was one of the producers on the first 3 VHS films. All of these segments chronicle a linear story that flow into one another. For instance, our lone survivor from the end of Siren ends up getting hit by a car driven by the main character of David Bruckner's The Accident, serving as the inciting incident. Or I guess the inciting accident? The way this movie's plot moves is a wet dream for fans of Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side, or of course, the VHS series, doing something those franchises never really dared, as it might become too complicated. Somehow, this anthology horror flick tells a linear story across multiple segments. That's something that you don't really see a whole lot in movies like this. It's usually just a bunch of stitched together segments that all tell different stories. Speaking of which, the kicker here that earns this movie its 3rd place spot is the twist at the end. If you haven't seen this movie, please go watch it first. Don't just listen to some sweaty guy on the internet talk about it. This is one that needs to be experienced. See it to believe it, people. Radio Silence's pseudo wraparound, The Way In and The Way Out, reveal that this madness is cyclical, with these characters trapped in a time loop where these events repeat over and over again. There are themes here of irredeemable mistakes and imagery that might remind the viewer of hell, like an ice cream parlor called Freezin' Over. I've definitely already said this before, but if you're only familiar with their horror comedy work, you gotta watch movies like Southbound to see that yes, they can do horror that is genuinely scary and just full of despair. This movie is very dark and punishing for its complex set of characters. Go watch Southbound. Start talking about Southbound more. Maybe they can turn this into a popular horror anthology franchise just like VHS. Did you guys know that I'm currently watching all of Dexter, like literally every single episode here on this page for the first first time. You can currently check out the first 3 episodes, but for members, you can see episode 4 right now.
And I'm waiting, breathless.
Your breath is gonna be taken, Dexter. You might actually feel something. Get a little wiggle or something down in the wiener. Wiggle down in the wiener. That's gonna be the name of my punk band. Please go check out these videos. I think they're a ton of fun, and if you haven't seen Dexter before, watch it for the first time with me. The uncut versions of these videos are over on Patreon as well if you want to watch it that way. Thank you again to everyone who has watched the Dexter videos. You can't talk about Radio Silence without talking about some of their horror comedies. And man, Ready or Not is easily my favorite from that entire section of their filmography. I think the reason this one hits so hard is because it came out during a time where there wasn't a whole lot of popular horror comedies. The late 2010s especially were dominated by like the A24 elevated horror, you know, for people whose farts don't stink. I really like a lot of those movies, but I do like making my jokes about them too. Movies like Hereditary, The Witch, Get Out, etc. are movies that are very serious in tone, very grounded, and yet have some very interesting themes to explore. Ready or Not cut through that era just like Samara Weaving's gut-wrenching Scream because it does something totally different in terms of tone. Not only did it catapult Radio Silence into the limelight, but it also cemented Samara Weaving's status as a scream queen. There are a ton of great performances here from the side characters, if it's Henry Czerny trying to keep this motley crew of dysfunctional rich people in line, or Nikki Guadagni playing the most hilariously evil-looking aunt you've ever seen on film. You only get that haircut if you're villainous. I think it's the simplicity of the darkly dynamic relationship between Grace and Alex that makes this whole thing work for me, however. Grace slowly realizes as this movie starts to unfold how fucked up it is that her husband lied to her about this horrifying possibility that has become a reality. How could there possibly be love or trust in a relationship where there was this big of a lie? Outside of the satanic cult stuff, I think that element of this movie is also very relatable. The twist at the end is the cherry on top for me, but for some viewers, it really turned them off. Sure, it would have been really funny to watch this whole thing fizzle out when the sun comes up and the family would have realized LaBelle's curse was a bunch of bullshit, but I think it's way more fun and satisfying that Radio Silence chose the other option. This explosive finale is filled with the blood and guts of a bunch of rich douche nozzles who absolutely had it coming. Had this been an A24 flick like many of the ones that were popular at the time, it probably would have ended with the whole thing just fizzling out and the rich people all get arrested and they're like, well shit, there's probably something really thematic that they could have found with that. But the fact that they had everybody blow up, it feels triumphant, it feels fun, it feels like a great ending to an 80s popcorn flick. Frankly, I don't think Ready or Not would have been that big hit without this ending. It would have felt like a lot of the other movies coming out at the time, and Ready or Not cuts through because it does something so different. I just don't think it would have been the same if LaBelle's curse wasn't real. Maybe it's not fair to put this movie at the top because it really is a product of many super talented directors who were still up and coming, all putting their best towards this one weird little flick. But man, just like Southbound, I feel like Radio Silence's segment makes VHS something that is really worth talking about even all these years later. There's so many reasons to love VHS. First of all, if you're a found footage fan and you want to see different kinds of like genres explored through that medium, VHS is the franchise for you. There are all kinds of things happening in all 8 of these movies, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a 9th one coming up soon. There is some disgusting, dirty, low-budget practical effects in all 8 of these movies that I personally just love. And of course, you get at least one really goopy, disgusting monster per movie. But I think the thing that has kept VHS is not only one of the best movies of the series, but also just one of the best anthology horror flicks out there, is this theme of karmic punishment. Pretty much every single segment in VHS can generally be boiled down to a bunch of assholes doing something bad and getting what they deserve. Then we get to Radio Silence's Halloween-themed segment at the end here, and we follow characters who are genuinely good dudes. They see what looks like a pretty terrifying situation, something really bad happening to a girl in an attic in this creepy-ass house. They try to save her, get her out of this house as all this crazy supernatural bullshit is coming after them. Then suddenly, on the train tracks, the car stops and it won't move. They are all hit by this train and punished for doing something good. It really makes you go back to those other segments where you're watching these douchebags do some bad things to these other people, and it's like, man, would they have gotten punished even if they did something good? It would make this film super cynical if it wasn't so damn fun. It's a really good juxtaposition, it makes you think, but it's also a fun-ass movie. I think VHS will always be my favorite movie that they've been a part of. This is a franchise I will never shut up about for the rest of time. Please keep making more and more VHS movies. They will never get old. This is an S tier without a doubt. How would you rank all 8 of these movies? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.